Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. My name is Henry Goldblatt. I'm the Vice President of Awards for Showtime. Before we're joined by our guest today, I want to let you know that SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible by the generosity of our supporters. Over the last 5 years, the foundation has given more than $6.5 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you're a SAG-AFTRA artist and you're in need, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you so much for your support. Now, without further ado, I am thrilled to be here chatting with William H. Macy, who starred as Frank Gallagher for 11 seasons on the Showtime hit show Shameless. He is a 2-time Emmy winner and a 15-time Emmy nominee, including this year for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy. So, Bill, congratulations, first of all, on the nomination this year, and it's great to be talking to you.
Thank you, Henry. It's good to be talking to you, too. Thank you.
I'm going to use this conversation, but pretty much going backwards. I want to start originally with this final season. And I was wondering if you have a favorite moment or favorite plot line that has stuck out in this final season and why it resonated with you.
The whole season was pretty remarkable. I talked with John Wells in the summer before we started the last season, and everybody agreed Frank was probably going to die because, spoiler alert, but with the way he has abused himself, everything pointed to that. And then I read the first script, and I called John and I said, "Does Frank have dementia?" Because I picked up on it immediately. And I think John was rather impressed with me that I picked up on it so quickly. But I love that. My dad died with dementia, and it's a scary thing. Either Alzheimer's or some sort of vascular dementia. It's in all of our futures in some form or another. Scares the bejesus out of me personally. And I thought it was a great way to go. And so the entire season was a give and take. I was more involved with the scripts than I had ever been because I had experience with it, as did John Wells. And some of the writers didn't, not direct experience. So I had a lot of feedback to give them. And it was a tough get because at once we wanted to be honest to what it means, and we wanted to be funny.
Yeah. And
I think we did that a couple of times. It's pretty funny. My dad was funny. I mean, especially at the beginning of it, he would get all confused about things, and we'd have a huge laugh over it. But as far as the specific moments, it all built to that final episode, episode 12. And it was weird. It was very weird. It was weird because what John wrote with Frank ascending, how do you act that? What does it mean? I mean, I had to answer a lot of questions, and a bunch of the scenes, I just had to do it on faith. I had to admit, I don't know what this means. And that's the truth of what Frank's going through. He doesn't know what it means either. And I love the boldness that John wrote the last episode. I love the boldness with which he did it, that rising up and being in the bar when no one can see him. It was a landmark moment in my career to do that, not the least of which because the nurse who is taking care of Frank when he's in the hospital was played by Sophia Macy.
Yeah,
my daughter.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that bar scene, that final bar scene in particular, where Frank is invisible to everybody. Everybody's acting. Everyone's just going about their ways around you. What is it like to act in that type of situation where you're supposed to be unseen, yet all this action is happening?
Well, that falls into the category of I don't know. I didn't know how to play it. I had nothing to base it on. It's, we were under imaginary circumstances, and even our imaginary circumstances were based on imaginary circumstances. But because it was the final season, 11th season, and we were all wrapping our heads around the fact that we were going to end this thing, which seemed like it would never end. It was emotional. It was giddy in a way. I was so thankful that we got to do a big scene together with everyone in the bar. That was such a mitzvah to be able to do something together. It was, yeah, that's it. We were highly emotional, trying to keep it together and trying to stay within the spirit of the show. And it was a good script. It was easy. It was a fun script to act. Fun stuff was coming together, all the different plots. And I love that John didn't tie everything up in a neat bow. It was quite something, really memorable.
How did it feel filming in a fictional universe that had COVID within it as you were filming in the real world that was dealing with the same pandemic?
As I understand it, Shameless was one of the first shows to go back early on, and certainly at Warner Brothers. And I heard through the grapevine, one of the reasons we were the first ones back is because, well, to be blunt, our show was so well run, such a well-oiled machine that they thought if anybody can pull this off, the Shameless folks could. And I was really proud of my company. We all took it deadly seriously. And yet, at the end of the day, the shooting was normal. It was a little weird. Everyone had a mask on, and then the actors would take their masks off for the take. And many, many times we'd get right in halfway into the take and somebody, cut, sorry, you forgot to take your mask off. We had our COVID czars walking around the set, reminding us to stay 6 feet apart when we could. We took COVID breaks. When we couldn't stay 6 feet apart, we'd go outside and sort of breathe some good fresh air. They cleaned everything. I think all the actors had the same experience that I did, which was the 6 months that we were shooting. I went to work, I went home. That's it. Didn't go anywhere. Didn't go to a grocery store, didn't do anything except work and go home. And so we had some positive tests come up, but to my knowledge, there's only 1 or 2 people that actually got COVID and actually got sick, and they didn't get very sick. At one point, the test got, I guess the machine that they run it through got fouled, and so we had 14 positives in one day.
Oh.
But of course, they shook that down, and it was just a problem with the technology. But it was pretty flawless and pretty much looked like normal shooting. There were few, if any, extras. We didn't go out on the streets very much at all. And when we did, we were very careful. So things were smaller. But when I watched this season, I thought it looked pretty much like a normal season. And we did our jabs and our jokes about wearing masks or not wearing masks and about COVID, especially Frankie's. My character is an obstructionist. He's against everything and for everything.
You mentioned when you first read the scripts for the season that you felt it was sort of inevitable. Frank would pass away. Spoiler alert. In your mind at all, had you seen any other possible ending for him? Was there anything else that you had fantasized about or thought like this could ring true?
I guess once we had done 5 or 6 seasons, I said, this is sort of prescient now that I think of it. What if Frank became a senator or vice president or something like that? Let's move the whole cast to Washington, D.C. Or Frank wins $70 million in a lotto, how fast we could. So we talked about all sorts of things, but after 11 seasons of Frank abusing himself, essentially, it was pretty clear the way it had to go.
One of my favorite parts of the scene with your daughter, of course, is you open up the shirt and there's the big "Do Not Resuscitate" tattoo across the chest. How long did it take in hair and makeup rather to get that on?
It didn't take long. It was a tattoo. I'm sorry. It was a sticker, basically, a fake tattoo that you just applied with water. But the funny thing that happened was we did have to shave my chest. I've got somewhat of a hairy chest, and we shaved it in that shape. So I looked pretty bizarre at the beach for a while until it grew back. But Jory, the makeup artist, we had worked pretty late. I had a lot of scenes that day, and I didn't go back in to get it taken off. And the next day, she was all over me. She said, "I could barely sleep last night. I let you ride home on a motorcycle with 'Do Not Resuscitate' tattooed to your chest."
Oh, no.
She said, "You can never do that again. You have to come in and get that taken off." I said, "Yeah, that's probably a good idea." Yeah.
Oh, no. Thankfully, no. My God, that would have been horrific.
Oh, Jory and I had the best time. It's after 11 seasons, there was a map of Frank's history on my body. And it would take 5 minutes to describe it, but I would say, this is where my daughter shot me. This is where my girlfriend shot me. This is where someone stole my kidneys. This is where I got a new liver. This is when I was scamming the insurance company and got a compound fracture. This is when my wife poured boiling water on my feet because she was pissed off. I had all these scars all over me. And when I had to do a scene in my knickers, it took a while to put all these scars on.
I can imagine. Did you take any, let's call them souvenirs from the set?
I didn't. And it's not that I didn't think about it a good bit. I just never found the thing that I thought said it all.
Sure.
I guess as a result, I've got souvenirs galore. From all 11 seasons, some great photographs and gifts, and I've got a lot of shameless wear.
I actually want to go back to the beginning and talk to you a little bit. When you signed on to this role 11 years ago, you were one of the first quote unquote movie actors to hop onto TV. And I was wondering what your first reaction was in terms of reading the script and making that decision.
First of all, I give credit to Alec Baldwin. He's the guy that led the way. I mean, there used to be this stigma attached. If you had a film career to doing TV, that marked the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
And Alec, God bless him, not only did he do 30 Rock, in which he was brilliant, one of my favorite shows of all time, but he did a commercial. He just changed everything because he led the way. And it took a star of his magnitude to say, yeah, who made up that rule? And I felt like I was late into the game because my bread and butter had been independent films with the occasional big feature, and it was all going away fast. And so it was a no-brainer to try to get into television. Also, I've always loved television. I love everything about it. First of all, I like watching television. I like the size of a television. I like the stories they tell. I like sticking with these characters week after week. And boy, when I finally did television, I did a few guest starring roles, but not that much. But I love the pace of television because they shoot fast. And for an actor, that means you get to act most of the day, as opposed to a giant $200 million film where you get to sit around waiting for them to set up the shot most of the day. They're both great, but I really like to act, and I loved being pushed. I read the script. I read a couple of scripts and nothing appealed to me. And then John sent me this along with the first episode of the British version. Man, I never looked back. It was a great first script. I loved the British version. I loved the character. And, I've always flattered myself I'm pretty good at reading scripts. And I had no doubt that the thing was going to run for a while. I didn't know it was going to run 11 years, over a decade, but with John Wells behind it, I thought, no, this has got hit written all over it. And in fact, it did. It was a joy from the very first. And he put together such a cast. Before talking to you, I Googled Shameless, and I saw the entire cast of all 11 years. And there's hundreds of actors. And it was a trip down memory lane because we had some of the best guest stars, fabulous acting.
Who sticks out in your mind?
Oh, Jim and Mike, Kermit and Tom in the bar. Mm-hmm. That's Jim Hoffmeister and Mike McGill. They were always in the bar, and there were a couple of other bar. Every time we did a scene at the Alibi, I just rejoiced because they were so much fun to act with, and they were so who they are. Joan Cusack, of course. I mean, what a time that was. She is a force of nature, and Lord, did we laugh. She was so unpredictable. And there was sort of a thing that on our show, you learn the lines. There's not a lot of ad-libbing. We used to do this thing. Okay, the directors would say, I got it. Anything you want to do, free hunting. Skate in one direction, please. But generally speaking, we just did what we had been doing because the writing was usually really great. But Joan, she would go off into the stratosphere, and we all said, oh boy, it's happening. And my job was to see if I could keep up with where she was going. Louise Fletcher came on as my mom. That was fabulous. She was, boy, did she get it. There were, who else? Dan Lauria was on as this politician child molester. I mean, try pulling that off and have people like you. But Dan did it. And gosh, talk about telling stories. Dan and I were just telling stories to each other all the time. Bradley Whitford did this thing when Frank was the face of gay pride in Illinois through a weird chain of events. But Bradley and I just had the best time together.
It's so awesome that you have these people come on that you either have a pre-existing relationship with or haven't met before and just can play in this playground or sandbox for a few episodes. That must have been so wonderful.
It was fun. And some of the actors had come on and they looked like a bomb had gone off in their faces because we shot so fast. Our scripts came in at 60 plus pages, and we had 6 days and change. We had a week, sometimes another day, and then a half a day in Chicago. But it was a bullet speed. And some of the actors thought, God in heaven, what have I done? If you didn't know your lines, if you weren't prepared, you was no catching up.
Well, tell people how many, so, that's 10 or so pages a day. How many pages a day is kind of normal on a TV show or even a film for that matter?
The big TV shows, the dramas, I'll bet you they can get by with doing 3 pages in a day if they have a gag or two, a stunt. Normally, I would say 5, maybe 6. We regularly did 10. I remember a 13-page day. I don't remember it fondly, but it happened. And we'd shoot 10 pages with a car crash and a shooting in one day. Wow. I mean, that usually a car crash or a shooting, that's going to take half of one of your days, and you might do another scene or two. But it was fast. Anthony Anderson was on for one of the shows too. That was really cool.
While you're talking about your guest stars and co-stars, I want to play a little game here. I'm going to name a co-star and the first word that comes to mind when I mention them. Emma Kenny.
Enthusiasm.
Nice. Cameron Moynihan.
Soulful.
Noel Fisher.
220 volts.
I like that. Ethan Kotkowski.
Cool.
Steve Howie.
Funny. Hysterical. Hysterically funny.
Shanola Hampton.
powerful.
Jeremy Allen White.
Buddha.
Nice. The great, great cast.
Oh, what a cast.
Looking forward, what do you hope that the show's legacy is?
I hope people find the humor funny in years to come. I'm very proud that John and the writers and Showtime, we never backed down. We would speak the unspeakable. We would go where prudence would tell you not to go. We did some pretty racy things, some pretty outlandish things. And I'm not a big guy on social media, but my impression is we got away with it.
Yeah.
People appreciated it because that cast was, they strove to tell the truth, and no matter how insane it was. And man, that was tough sometimes. We had, a good example is they did a plot where a drink, it was Hobo Loco. It was a Thunderbird wine kind of a company that wanted to hire a hobo as their spokesperson, hobo, an antique term. And it was pretty broad. The rules of the game were pretty broad and the writing was pretty broad. And Louis and I, everybody in it, did our best to try to keep it on the straight and narrow, to try to hew the line, to make it as truthful as we could. And it was a plot that I wasn't a fan of when I read it, but it came out to be great. It was just great. And that happened a lot. I mean, one of the things I learned, for me, it was my 10,000 hours. Do you know what I mean? Why I had to wait until I was in my 60s to do it, but it was our 10,000 hours. We got to act every day for a long time. And the 10,000 hours, that book, The Outliers.
Yep.
And boy, when you can do something that much, you get better at it. And I watched the whole cast mature and get better and do extremely complicated work, seemingly effortlessly. Certainly for me, getting back to the plots, I would read the plots, and in the first couple of seasons, I would go, I don't understand this. I want to rewrite. Let's talk about this. I don't get it. And in the last couple of seasons, I realized those are just the words. There's something in there. The words aren't what it's about at the end of the day. They might be, but usually they're not, because people don't really say what they mean. So I got that even though the plot was outlandish, it's still our job to find the truth in it and to tell the truth about it. And when you can't, when you do your best and it's just, you don't get it, well, there's your answer.
Exactly.
Beats me. That's what's happened. It falls into the category of truth is weirder than fiction. And I'm really happy that we not only tried to be funny, but had some real pathos in the series. I find when I watch some of the episodes, I just weep like a baby. It just kills me. You talked about this final episode, and I didn't know where to put it. I didn't know how to handle it. You don't want to make it the final episode. It's got to be just another episode, but it was the final episode. And I was really cool about it. Chris Chulak was directing, and it's that crane shot. Well, you don't see the crane, but it's when Frank is rising up through the building. And I was very pleased. It was on an impulse that I took my beer with me. I was proud of that. But we were shooting that, and it was about 3 days before the final day. And Chris said, Bill, look back down at the camera. This will be the last time Frank is on camera. And I lost my shit. I was weeping like a baby. It just hit me. Thank God I'd gotten some clean takes, but man, when he said that, it came crashing down. That it was over, and the magnitude of what we had done and the magnitude of that it had, the effect that it had on my life. It's really hard to remember what I did before Shameless.
Well, Bill, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. And we really appreciate it. We're such huge fans of the show. And I hope that voters will consider voting for Bill for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series in the upcoming Emmys. On behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you for sharing your experiences, your process, and your craft with your fellow performers. Have a great day. And best of luck to you.
Thank you, brother.